Five, four, three, two, one. This is John Miglash with the Wisconsin DMA and the International Society for Strategic Marketing. I'm here with Andrew Schulkind, and he's got a long track record in digital marketing. And we were, in fact, just asking him about his background, brought back so many memories. I remember when SEO was like, put the most important word in your website metadata 100,000 times. I built whitetail.com and I had whitetail, this infinite string of.
Don't forget about putting it white text on a white background to get it on the front end too.
Oh yeah, I did. Yeah, well, yeah. The more times you could repeat the same word, that was before Google existed, and he's been doing this since '96, and so we didn't care about backlinks. We just filled ourselves up with whatever we thought we could convince Lycos to follow.
Lycos, there's a term I haven't heard in a long time.
Yeah. Well, I built my first websites in 1995, over Memorial Day. Yeah. So heaven help us. So I'm here with Andrew, and he wrote a really thoughtful article about segmenting your content. And I wrote him back and said, I only have 10,000 followers total, and most of them aren't very engaged. So what good is that? So he's going to come and explain it better, and probably in a way that helps most of you who have more contacts and connections and more ways to segment. So take it away, Andrew.
Oh, sure. So first, thanks for having me on, John. It's really great to be here, and I'm glad that you saw my article on LinkedIn. And I think that you bring up an excellent point, especially for those of us who are smaller businesses ourselves, but like you work with larger companies, and for whom a 10,000 person list is not large at all. But I think there is another way to think about this, and the first thing I'll say is something I say all the time, which is, your prospects don't care about you. Your prospects don't even care about what you do. Your prospects care about what you can do for them. You need to be relevant. You need to be providing information of value in the content that you do, and that relevancy point is critical to keeping engagement or to gaining engagement. And I agree with you that for most of us little guys, or micro influencers, if we want to use the current buzzword, we're working with small enough numbers that trying to segment a list is probably not going to make sense. So for us, I'd say the segmenting that I'm talking about is really more about the followers that we don't have yet than the ones that we do, right? You have to, and I'm not sure that 10,000 is necessarily, that there's some number out there that works or doesn't work. If you have a sophisticated enough CRM, and I know that's a little bit of a buzzword for you, but where you can do sort of progressive profiling, and you can track the kind of content or the specific pieces of content that a specific prospect has seen, then there's more segmenting that you can do.
Wait, slow down, because I've been at this a while, as you have, but I don't know how to do that.
Yeah, and so for smaller firms, there's not necessarily an easy way to do that. There are all sorts of home, roll your own kind of solutions that you could put in place that helps track what content has been viewed on your website, and cookies, things like that. I think that some of the lower priced CRMs and marketing automation tools, like the one I'm thinking of right now is SharpSpring. I think that they have some tools that can do that. And
I have looked at that. I've looked at a few of my clients in B2B use HubSpot, and that has some tracking capability.
Yeah. And I think that that's and HubSpot, if you're a solopreneur or a two-partner law practice or something, HubSpot's probably going to be beyond your means. I'm not sure you can see enough return for there to be real value.
Well, you can start with a free version. I mean, I have some multi-million-dollar B2B companies that are just still using the free version. Just to track. Yeah, they send out their email, and they can track open rates and stuff, and that's the main way they read it or they use it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't think too many of these more sophisticated tools were available at those lower tiers. But if they are, all the better. Then I certainly recommend doing that. But to get back to the point on segmentation, I think the main thrust of what you're doing and how you're doing it, you should be creating sort of bespoke versions of that speak to the specifics of any particular vertical that you're looking at. Or well, vertical could be right. It could be just a particular industry, but you probably have different concerns if you are I don't know, a CFO versus an accounting manager, right? And if you're selling a product that both of those people are going to have to approve, well, you're going to want to address those concerns differently. And so that's the kind of segmentation that I'm talking about.
Oh, okay.
So really more prospect focused than the established audience. But to get back to the tools we were just talking about, some of them, and again, this is an area where I'm not an expert, but you can find tools where you can take the same basic email, let's say, and send it out in slightly different versions so that the focus is on X instead of Y. So you can segment your list that way, which gets back to the point you were talking about, where you'd have to know, well, these are the CFOs that I'm going after, and over here this is the list of accounting managers that I'm talking to. So,
right.
I think there are tools on both sides, but really what I was referring to in that article are prospects more than the folks who are already your fans.
It's been really frustrating for my B2B clients because for a while LinkedIn lets you at least gather emails in an automated way. You could download the email. At first it was phone number and email. It never was street address, which I always thought was odd. And now when they gave you an opt out on your email and proactively opted everyone out. Right. So there's almost no way to contact people and ask them for their email except send them messages. So I send a lot of messages now. Right. And there's no, as far as I know, way to automate the messaging. And while that can segment a little by geo and title and some other things, it's still pretty clunky, and now I'm pushing 6,000 connections on LinkedIn, and so for example, I was up in Minnesota and did a meetup and sent out about 1,000 messages, and I got about 6 people wanting to come have a beer.
Right.
But it's not like the old days where we could automate faxes or actual mailings or that. And I put pop-ups on all kinds of my sites because I have about 6 or 7, and I don't think I ever actually garnered one email off of those sites.
No kidding. That's interesting, because that's the one thing that you can read, that pop-ups, even though we all hate them, you can't find anyone who says they like them. They are tremendously effective, the data say. That really is an effective way to gather email addresses. So
I maybe give away too much for free. Back in the day when we started ISSM, which was one of the very first to use PDF produced newsletters globally, back in I think we launched that in about, it launched in '86 as the North American Society for Strategic Marketing. Don Leiby invited about a dozen of us to his think tank, and then when the internet came along, I asked him if I could, do it as an internet organization, and he said, sure, who cares? Kind of who cares? And we got about 10,000 emails from all across the world, about 150 countries. Yeah, it was pretty neat. And then it got hacked, and other things happened, and times have changed. So it's really been a kind of a frustration. So now I just more like the spray and pray. I try to do consistency and try to talk about something interesting. And I look at on LinkedIn how many views I got, though I have no idea what a view means on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I'm not sure I believe anyone who says they do know what the value of that is. But honestly, none of that's going to get any better, right? I mean, with GDPR in the UK and in the EU, and it's headed this way in one form or another.
Right. I preemptively unsubscribed all my European email addresses. because I get no revenue. But the
Mm-hmm.
GDPR says we can take 4% of your gross revenue globally. So they can fine you based on your U.S. revenue, even though you get not a dime worth of stuff out of Europe. Well,
Right.
that's a heck of a deal.
Yeah.
I got a couple of people writing me and saying, no, please don't, because I wrote them all and said it, And I have editors. I have some really top-notch people in Europe that follow me. And
Right.
I said, yeah, but I'm not going to keep track of whether I reconnected with you in the next 24 months.
Right.
And I said, you can then come at me and say you didn't give me the right to be forgotten. I said, I'm not
Right.
doing any of that. And they said, we promise, we won't.
Yeah, it's tough. It really has
it's
gotten. I think the pendulum is swinging.
it's insanity, really it is. Yeah. So now
Yeah.
I'm doing calls and mailings to people in my association.
Right.
It's like I don't know what else to do, but I do.
That makes
Like
it sound like
yesterday,
the U.S. Postal Service is behind all this. That's how they're going to bring their business back.
yeah, because literally with GDPR, you're still allowed to mail. The
Right.
catalogers are all mailing still because they have a compelling interest in connecting with their customers that way because that's the way they've
Right.
been doing it for 40 years. And the
Right.
I forget what the thing is, the CI over there or whatever it is says, yeah, that's okay. We don't have any problem with mail. We have problem with
No, well,
email. It's really designed against email and
yeah,
cookies.
very much. Well, because
Yeah.
we all know that there's virtually no cost to after the first email address, the next million are free. So
Right.
everyone sends to everything they can think of, and that's why I get 500, 600 emails a night overnight,
Oh
and
yeah.
100 of them are things that I signed up for or really want, and it's yeah, it's gotten to be
I know.
problematic.
I laugh when people unsubscribe to my quarterly email. Like that's going to stem the tide.
Right, right. I'm really
It's
cleaning
like,
up my inbox. Right.
so I hardly even bother with it, but I'm going to do one this probably in the next week because I'm doing this AI ROI promotion, and I'm going to go to the Namoa show. But so anyway, I remember talking to Arthur Hughes, who wrote a book on RFM segmentation. Not that I don't recommend his methodology, but I know what it is. And I said, Art, we're kind of going beyond RFM these days. This was a number of years ago because he's passed away since. And he said, oh, now we just email everybody. It's like, who cares?
Right.
So, in a certain sense, segmentation seems to be dying.
I'm not sure I'd agree with that necessarily. If you're not
I'm hoping you
segmenting,
defend it because that's where I'm trying to get you to go.
yeah, no. I think, look, if we talked earlier about, a super homogeneous list, and, that certainly changes the dynamic, right? If your audience is not really segmented and doesn't need to be segmented, you just have one thing, the product, service, and it appeals to one type of consumer. You're great. You send everything to everyone, but if your audience is more interesting than that, you're selling to different people who have different reasons for buying from you and who are buying different products or services, then you really do need to segment, because it's not like the folks who are unsubscribing from your quarterly email. I mean, that's good news. I want to know, because then I've got a real sense of what's happening. It's the folks who are just unengaged, that maybe they're reading it, maybe they're not. They're just hitting delete immediately, and it can be hard, depending on the technology on the other end, to get a really really great read for what's really happening. So now you're not relevant, so you're being ignored. They're not even taking the time to unsubscribe. They're just ignoring you, and so now you've got these big puffy numbers on subscribers, but you're really not. There's no engagement, and you're never
Right.
going to those folks. So you've got to segment. You really do, particularly on the prospect front. I think it's probably just as important for more established folks who are further into the funnel, or folks with whom you have a relationship already, because you have to stay relevant, right? It has to be of interest, or they're just gonna be like, oh yeah, I remember Andy. I don't need to read his email this month. So
Yeah, there's a lot of that, but
yeah,
there always has been. You know,
Yeah.
it's a challenge. Well, I hope you publish more articles on this topic. I'm 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 hoping there's a way to do it. You know,
Yeah.
I have to say I've kind of given up on it, and I tend to talk on, on return on investment and how you
Right.
can best get that, but it isn't always about. It's hard to say,
Yeah.
and
Well, I'll say you've certainly lit a little bit of a fire here. I really want to see if there's a way we can provide a solution to this. That this isn't
yeah.
something that we had considered as a problem people were facing. But yeah, worth looking into further. So thank you very much for that.
Well, I hope you come up with something. In my book, I talk about in 1978, I think, Farm Journal magazine partnered with R. Donnelley Printing to do selectronic bindery because they had the concept that a corn farmer was different than a hog farmer or a dairy farmer.
What year was
And
that? That's really
about
great.
78, yeah, about
Yeah,
78. And I don't know, but it's in my book about I know it actually tells when it happened.
right.
And all of the trades when I got into marketing, which was in the late 70s, early 80s, all the books were about how one of these days every magazine that comes to your house, every catalog is going to be tailored just to products you want. Sound familiar?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I talked to printers just this week. I said, how many people are really doing custom offers to their customers? They said, oh, 10, 15%. It's been about that since the 80s because
Interesting.
people just don't know. They try it. I spent a
Right.
couple of years trying it with Musician's Friend, where we knew the drummers were weirder than the guitar players. But when we do a drum catalog, and we even got advertisers in it, and we put special products for drummers, they'd buy a guitar out of it.
Wow.
They'd look at it and they'd buy something else,
Mm.
and we and if you, and the guitar catalog, the guitar players, we segmented them, and they would buy drums. They'd buy a bongo or something. It was the weirdest thing. People are hard to predict.
Yeah.
We
That's
worked.
fascinating.
Yeah, we worked for years at it, and finally we all kind of sat around and said, "They said, is this a lot of work for you?" I said, "Yeah, we're doing 4 models a month, and dovetailing them together in a hierarchy, and it changes every month of who you want to put first on this thing and which one you want to make most, because if you bought drums and guitars, do you get the drum book or do you get the car? So you had to kind of sort it out. Or are you a DJ, or are you a professional musician, or are you an amateur, and or are you acoustic? Or we had all these categories. We were always doing all this stuff, and we said, yeah, it's killing us. They said, well, yeah, it's
Wow.
kind of killing us too. Why don't we just go back to that big catalog we used to make? It makes
Yeah.
just as much money. I said, yeah, it does. And
Wow.
and
That's
yeah, it's kind of scary. Now, I'm a big advocate of overwraps and making it look like it's special,
right.
but it's hard to be special because even when you can make it special, you're not sure who is who out there.
Right. Yeah. And I think we see that on the digital side as well, where you go and look for a ladder. I remember doing this, and all of a sudden, every website I went to that was opted into the ad networks were showing me advertising for Werner ladders. I'm like, guys, I already bought the ladder. Like,
Yeah,
but
I
for
know. I
six
use a
weeks.
private browser a lot, a
Yeah.
lot. I'm
Right.
big on private browsing. Well,
What
I
are you
think
buying,
we'll,
John? I think that.
yeah, shoes or something. Yeah, or I just bought a really cool little lamp. A little lamp for my when I go on the road and I want to do my show. It's an
Ah,
LED thing that clamps on my computer. It's really cool and it really works great.
right.
It's just, yeah, but I buy it on eBay.
And they now
And
they think you're going to buy 10 more. Right.
but I'm not.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
There's
anyway,
the rub.
Andrew, I know I want to respect your time. It's great talking with you, and I hope we can do this again. And I hope maybe between the two of us we can come up with something for little guys like us to break through and knock a few heads.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. So I appreciate
Yeah.
you
Okay.
bringing up the points and
Well,
challenging the premise. That's great.
yeah. It can be fodder for your next article.